I never thought I would have to choose between my children and my parents. That decision was made for me when they kicked us out of Thanksgiving dinner over my divorce. For years, I had been paying their mortgage, supporting them, despite their constant criticism of my life choices. But that night, as my kids and I stood on their porch with our coats, something in me changed. Before I tell you what happened after I cut off their mortgage payments, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to set boundaries with family. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, my relationship with my parents was always complicated. My dad worked as an accountant while my mom taught elementary school, and they constantly stressed about money. From an early age, they drilled into me that success meant financial stability at all costs. Javier, you need to study harder. We cannot afford to send you to college without scholarships. My mom would remind me almost daily throughout high school. Despite their financial constraints, I managed to earn a full scholarship to study computer science at University of Illinois. Those 4 years gave me my first taste of independence, away from their constant pressure and expectations. After graduation, I landed a job at a promising tech startup in Chicago, where I climbed the ranks quickly. By 27, I had met Amanda, the woman who would become my wife. She was brilliant, kind, and worked as a pediatric nurse. My parents seemed satisfied with my choice, mainly because her career was stable and respected. "You finally made a smart decision, son," my father said at our engagement dinner, as if my entire educational and career path had been meaningless until that moment. 2 years into our marriage, we welcomed our son Jack, and 2 years after that, our daughter Sophia arrived. From the outside, we had the perfect American family story. I had been promoted to senior software engineer with a 6-figure salary. We bought a nice house in the suburbs. My parents finally seemed proud. Then everything changed 3 years ago. I received a panicked call from my mother one Tuesday evening. "Javier, the bank is going to take our house." She sobbed into the phone. "Your father made some bad investments, and we cannot make the payments anymore." I rushed over to find them sitting at their kitchen table, surrounded by past due notices and foreclosure warnings. My father, always proud to a fault, could barely look at me as my mother explained how they had refinanced their mortgage to invest in a friend's business venture that failed spectacularly. Without much consideration, I offered to help. "I can cover the mortgage until you get back on your feet," I said, calculating how this would affect my own family's finances. My father initially refused, but my mother quickly accepted. I set up automatic payments of $2,800 each month to their mortgage company. It was a significant sum on top of my own mortgage and family expenses, but I managed by cutting back on our savings and working extra projects on the side. I thought this arrangement would bring us closer. Instead, it seemed to create a strange power dynamic. My parents never explicitly thanked me after that first day, treating my financial support as an obligation rather than generosity. Around the same time, my marriage began showing signs of strain. Amanda and I had grown apart over the years with different work schedules and parenting approaches. We tried counseling, but eventually decided on an amicable divorce with joint custody of our children. It was painful, but mature with the kids as our priority. My parents did not see it that way. "You are throwing away a perfectly good marriage," my mother accused when I told them. "What about Jack and Sophia? Have you thought about them at all?" No amount of explaining that an unhappy household would be worse for the children seemed to convince them. In their generation, divorce was still considered a failure. Each family gathering became an opportunity for subtle digs and passive-aggressive comments about my parenting and life choices. Yet I continued paying their mortgage. Every month, $2,800 transferred from my account to keep them in the house where they had raised me. Despite their disappointment in me, I could not bring myself to let them lose their home. This year, I was especially looking forward to Thanksgiving. It would be my first major holiday with Jack and Sophia since the divorce was finalized. I had the kids for the long weekend and wanted to make it special. I spent days planning activities and bought ingredients to make pumpkin pie from scratch, something my grandmother had taught me. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I called my parents to confirm our plans. "We will be there around 2, I said. "The kids are excited to see you. Should I bring anything besides the pie?" My mother's response was tepid. "Just yourselves. Thomas and his family will be here too." Thomas, my younger brother, had followed a more traditional path. He married his college sweetheart, had 3 children in quick succession, and worked steadily at an insurance company. My parents never failed to mention his stable marriage whenever I was around. Despite the underlying tension, I was determined to make it a positive experience for Jack and Sophia. They deserved to have a normal holiday with their grandparents, regardless of the adult complications. Little did I know how wrong I was about what would unfold at that Thanksgiving table. The drive to my parents' suburban home was filled with holiday music and the children's excited chatter. Jack had made hand turkeys at school, while 6-year-old Sophia had memorized a Thanksgiving poem to recite for her grandparents. "Do you think Grandma made her special cranberry sauce?" Jack asked from the back seat. "I am sure she did," I replied, pulling into the familiar driveway of the 2-story colonial house my payments were keeping from foreclosure. The front door opened before we could ring the bell. My mother stood there, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she welcomed the children with hugs. "Come in, come in. Everyone else is already here," she said, giving me a brief nod instead of her usual hug. The living room was exactly as I remembered from childhood Thanksgivings, adorned with the same decorations they had used for decades. My father sat in his recliner watching football, while Thomas and his wife Lisa arranged a vegetable tray on the coffee table. Their 3 children played quietly with tablets in the corner. "Javier," my father acknowledged without rising. "Glad you could make it." The coolness of their reception stung, but I brushed it aside for my children's sake. Sophia immediately ran to show her grandfather the poem she had practiced, while Jack went to join his cousins. "How have you been?" Javier Thomas asked with that slightly superior tone he had perfected over the years. At 32, he looked like a younger version of our father, right down to the carefully pressed slacks and button-down shirt, even for a family gathering. "Good. The tech company I am consulting for just secured major funding, so work has been busy, but rewarding," I replied. "Consulting," my father repeated with a slight sniff. "Still, not a permanent position then," I bit back a retort. My freelance work paid more than twice what Thomas made at his steady insurance job, not to mention covering their mortgage, but I knew better than to mention money directly. Dinner started pleasantly enough. The food was excellent, as always, my mother's cooking skills being one of her indisputable talents. For a while, conversation flowed around safe topics like the unseasonably warm November weather and my niece's soccer tournament victory. Then my father cleared his throat during a lull in conversation. "So, Javier dating anyone new yet? It has been almost a year since the divorce." The question landed like a grenade at the table. My children looked up suddenly interested in adult conversation. "Not at the moment," I answered carefully. "I am focused on work and the kids right now." My mother set down her fork with a sigh. "You cannot wait too long, Javier. The good ones get taken quickly. Look at Amanda. I heard she is seeing someone from the hospital now." That was news to me, but I kept my expression neutral for the kids' sake. "If she is happy, that is great. Maybe you should try one of those dating applications," Thomas suggested with a smirk. "Though at 35, your options might be limited compared to when you met Amanda." I took a long sip of water, trying to maintain composure. "I am not concerned. When the time is right, it will happen naturally." My mother turned to Sophia, who was pushing food around her plate. "Do not. You want a new mommy at home, sweetheart. Would not that be nice?" Instead of going back and forth between houses, I nearly choked on my water. "Mom, that is not appropriate. What is not appropriate is children growing up without a proper family. she retorted, her voice rising slightly. Jack and Sophia need stability. Not this modern arrangement you have convinced yourself is adequate. My children have a proper family. I defended, keeping my tone measured. Amanda and I may not be together, but we are both fully present parents who communicate well and put their needs first. My father's fork clattered against his plate. You threw away your marriage, Javier. You gave up instead of working through problems like adults do. Now your children are paying the price for your selfishness. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I had spent countless nights questioning if I had done the right thing, wondering if staying in an increasingly distant marriage would have been better for the kids. But Amanda and I had made our decision thoughtfully, with multiple counseling sessions and careful consideration. You do not know what went on in my marriage, I said quietly. We tried for years to make it work. Thomas jumped in, obviously enjoying my discomfort. Lisa and I have had rough patches too, but we would never quit on our family. That is the difference between responsibility and taking the easy way out. I noticed Jack's lower lip trembling. Sophia had stopped eating entirely and was staring at her plate. This was exactly what Amanda and I had tried to protect them from, the judgment and tension that made children blame themselves for their parents' decisions. Can we please change the subject, I asked, placing a reassuring hand on Sophia's small shoulder. This is not the time or place for this discussion. When is the time, then? My father demanded. Every time we try to talk sense into you, you shut down the conversation. You need to get your priorities straight and find these children a new mother before they end up maladjusted. My mother nodded vigorously. I have a coworker with a lovely niece who just moved to Chicago. She is 30 and very family-oriented. I could arrange an introduction. The presumption that I needed their matchmaking, the implication that my children were somehow damaged without a stepmother, and the complete dismissal of all the careful co-parenting Amanda and I practiced finally broke through my restraint. I am not interested in your coworker's niece or anyone else you want to push on me, I said firmly. My personal life is not up for discussion or committee approval. My father's face reddened. As long as we are all connected financially, this family's welfare is my concern. You made a commitment to Amanda, just like you made a commitment to help us. Apparently your word does not mean much these days. The mention of financial connections shifted something in me. Is that what this is about? You think because I pay your mortgage you get to dictate my personal choices. Do not be ridiculous, my mother interjected. We are concerned about the children. No, you are concerned about controlling me, just like always, I replied, my voice steady, despite my racing heart. You have never approved of my choices unless they matched exactly what you wanted for me. My father stood up abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. That is enough. I will not be spoken to this way in my own house. The house I make payments on, I reminded him, immediately regretting the words, but unable to take them back. His face contorted with rage. If you think your financial assistance buys you the right to disrespect us, then maybe we do not need your money or your attitude. Take your children and get out. A stunned silence fell over the table. Even Thomas looked shocked. Dad, come on, he started, but our father cut him off with a sharp gesture. I mean it. If Javier thinks he knows better than everyone about everything, he can leave. Right now. I looked at my mother, expecting her to intervene, but she sat silently, lips pressed together in a thin line of disapproval. You want me to leave? In the middle of Thanksgiving dinner, I asked incredulously, with my children. If you cannot respect our values in this house, then yes, my father confirmed. Maybe some time to think about your choices would do you good. I looked at Jack and Sophia, their eyes wide with confusion and the beginning of tears. This was supposed to be a special family holiday for them, not another casualty of adult conflicts. Standing slowly, I kept my voice calm for their benefit. Kids, we need to go now. Please get your coats. But Daddy, we have not had dessert yet. Sophia protested, her small voice trembling. We will get dessert somewhere else, sweetheart, I promised, helping her from her chair. Go with your brother to get your things." As the children reluctantly left the table, I turned to my parents. "I have never been more disappointed in you than I am right now. You just chose your pride over your grandchildren's holiday." My mother finally spoke. "You chose your freedom over their stable home, so do not lecture us about priorities." Without another word, I collected the kids and our belongings. As we walked to the car, I could feel their small hands gripping mine tightly, sense their confusion and hurt. The leftover food we had been looking forward to taking home remained on the table, our family tradition shattered, along with any illusion I still maintained about unconditional love. The drive away from my parents' house was painfully quiet. In the rearview mirror, I could see Sophia wiping tears from her cheeks, while Jack stared blankly out the window. Their holiday had been ruined, and the weight of that sat heavily on my shoulders. "I am sorry about what happened back there," I finally said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sometimes adults disagree, and Grandma and Grandpa were not being very nice today." "Is it because of the divorce?" Jack asked, directly, his 8-year-old mind connecting dots no child should have to connect. "Do they hate us now?" My heart broke at his question. "Nobody, they do not hate us. They love you both very much. They just have some old-fashioned ideas about family that make it hard for them to understand our situation." "But why did we have to leave before pumpkin pie?" Sophia's question was simpler, but no less painful. "I spotted a restaurant still open for the holiday and made a spontaneous decision. How about we have our own Thanksgiving dinner? Just the three of us." 20 minutes later, we were seated in a booth at a family restaurant that was serving a holiday menu. It was not the home-cooked meal we had expected, but the kids perked up at the sight of chocolate pie on the dessert menu. "Can we get 2 pieces?" Jack negotiated, his entrepreneurial spirit returning as the initial shock wore off. "You can have as many pieces as you want today," I promised, earning genuine smiles from both children. As we ate our makeshift holiday meal, I carefully explained that sometimes family members disagree, but that does not mean they stop loving each other. I assured them that none of this was their fault, and that both their mother and I loved them unconditionally. Back at my apartment, we built a blanket fort in the living room and watched animated movies until they fell asleep, emotionally exhausted from the day's events. I carried them one by one to the guest room they shared during their stays with me, tucking them in with extra care. Alone in the quiet apartment, I finally allowed myself to feel the full impact of what had happened. My parents had kicked their grandchildren out of a holiday dinner to make a point about my divorced status. The callousness of that action struck me anew, along with the realization that this was not a one-time incident, but the culmination of a lifetime of conditional acceptance. For 3 days after Thanksgiving, I waited for a call or text from my parents, apologizing for their behavior. Nothing came, not even an inquiry about how the children were doing. When Amanda picked up Jack and Sophia on Sunday, she immediately sensed something was wrong. After the kids were settled in the car with tablets, she pulled me aside. "What happened?" Jack mentioned something about leaving Thanksgiving early. I gave her the condensed version, watching her expression shift from concern to outrage. "That is completely unacceptable," she stated firmly. "Your parents need to understand. They cannot treat the kids like pawns in whatever issue they have with you." Her support meant more than I expected. Despite our differences, we remained united when it came to protecting our children's well-being. The following week, I met my longtime friend Lucas for lunch. As I recounted the Thanksgiving disaster, his normally jovial expression hardened. "Javier, you have been paying their mortgage for 3 years while they continuously disrespect you, and now they have dragged your kids into it." He shook his head in disbelief. "Why are you still financially supporting people who treat you this way?" His question struck a nerve. Why was I? Some misplaced sense of filial duty, fear of being the person who let his parents lose their home, or the desperate hope that my financial support would eventually translate into their emotional support. That evening, I sat down with my laptop and opened my banking app. I calculated that over 3 years, I had paid approximately $100,000 toward my parents' mortgage. Money that could have gone toward my children's college funds, money earned through long hours and sacrificed weekends. With a surprising sense of calm, I canceled the automatic payment scheduled for the first of the month. Then I drafted a carefully worded email, Mom and Dad. After careful consideration, I am discontinuing my payments toward your mortgage, effective immediately. Your decision to humiliate me and my children on Thanksgiving made it clear that my financial support has not fostered mutual respect in our relationship. I will always be grateful for the sacrifices you made raising me, but I cannot continue to subsidize a household where my children and I are not welcome unless we conform to your expectations. I am establishing a college fund for Jack and Sophia with the money previously allocated to your mortgage. I wish you well and hope we can rebuild our relationship on healthier terms in the future. Javier. After reading it 3 times for clarity and tone, I pressed send, then closed my laptop. The decision brought both anxiety and strange relief, like setting down a heavy load I had carried for too long. Their response was swift and predictable. My phone rang within minutes of sending the email. I let it go to voicemail, not yet ready for a direct confrontation. The messages accumulated quickly. You cannot do this to us. My mother's voicemail voice shrill with panic. This is how you repay everything we have done for you. My father's text full of wounded pride and entitlement. The bank will take our house. Is that what you want? Another voicemail from my mother. I muted my phone and tried to focus on reviewing a code project due the next day, but concentration was impossible. My parents had never faced real consequences for their behavior toward me before. I wondered if this would be the wake-up call our relationship needed, or the final break. The next morning, my father showed up unannounced at my office building. The receptionist called up with obvious discomfort in her voice. Mr. Morales, your father is in the lobby, insisting on seeing you. He seems quite upset. I considered having security escort him out, but decided it would only escalate the situation. Send him up, Jenny. Thanks for the warning. My father looked smaller somehow, in the modern glass and steel environment of my workplace, his outdated sports coat and agitated demeanor out of place among the casually dressed tech professionals moving purposefully through the space. We need to talk, he stated, without greeting, when I met him in the visitor area. Not here, I replied firmly, leading him to a small conference room and closing the door. This is my workplace. You have left us without options, he began immediately. The bank called this morning. Without your payment, we will be 3 weeks from foreclosure proceedings. I am sorry to hear that I said meaning it, despite everything. But there are other options. You could sell the house and downsize, take out a different loan structure, or ask Thomas for help. You know your brother cannot afford it, he exclaimed, as if the suggestion was absurd. He has 3 children to support, and I have 2. I reminded him calmly. 2 children you kicked out of Thanksgiving dinner because you disapprove of their parents' divorce. He had the grace to look momentarily ashamed before rallying. Your mother was upset. Things got out of hand. That does not mean you can just abandon your commitment to us. It was never a commitment. It was an offer of help that turned into an expected entitlement I corrected. I cannot continue financing a home where my children are not respected. So you will let us become homeless to prove a point, he demanded. You will not be homeless. You have options, just not comfortable ones. Sometimes difficult choices are necessary for growth. You taught me that, remember? The conversation continued in circles, my father alternating between guilt, anger, and attempts at reconciliation without actual apology. When he finally left, I felt drained but oddly empowered. For perhaps the first time I had held firm on a boundary with my parents. That evening, Thomas called his usual smugness, replaced with genuine concern. What is going on? Javier, Mom and Dad are falling apart. Dad says you are cutting them off completely. I explained the situation fully, including the Thanksgiving incident he had witnessed firsthand. I am not cutting them off emotionally, just financially. There is a difference. Thomas was quiet for a moment. I always thought you had it easy being the favorite who could do no wrong while I was stuck following all their rules. I never realized the pressure you were under or how they manipulated you with their approval. His unexpected insight caught me off guard. They love us both, Thomas. They just show it in deeply flawed ways. Yeah, he agreed softly. Listen, Lisa, and I cannot take over the full mortgage, but maybe we could help with something. Split it between us. His offer touched me, but I held firm. I appreciate that, but I think our parents need to take responsibility for their situation. We can support them emotionally through the transition to whatever comes next. 2 weeks passed with minimal contact beyond terse text exchanges, confirming that Jack and Sophia were still welcome to visit their grandparents despite the financial situation. I wondered if we had reached a permanent impasse when my phone rang on a Sunday afternoon with my father's number. Hello, I answered cautiously. Javier, my father, said, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. Could we meet somewhere? Just you and me. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. When I arrived, I was surprised to find him already seated in a corner booth, looking older and more tired than I remembered. Thank you for coming, he began, after I sat down with my coffee. The formality was unusual from him. Of course, I replied, waiting. He stared into his cup for a long moment before speaking. I have been doing a lot of thinking these past 2 weeks. Your mother and I both have. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. I owe you an apology. What happened at Thanksgiving was unacceptable. We should never have put the children in that position. The admission stunned me. In 35 years, I could count on one hand the number of times my father had apologized to me for anything. I appreciate that, I said cautiously. Your email about the mortgage made me realize something, he continued. I have been judging your life choices while simultaneously depending on the success those choices created. He looked up at me directly. It was hypocritical and unfair. It was, I agreed, not softening the truth, but keeping my tone neutral. Your mother and I have listed the house for sale, he said, surprising me again. It is too big for us now anyway, and we found a nice condo that fits our budget with the equity we have built. It will be an adjustment, but maybe a good one. The news that they had taken practical steps to address their situation, without my intervention, shifted something in my perception of them. Perhaps they were capable of change after all. That sounds like a sensible plan, I offered. We would also like to apologize to Jack and Sophia, he added. If you would allow it, perhaps they could visit this weekend. Your mother is beside herself about how we treated them. I considered the request carefully. I would need to talk with them first, see how they feel about it, and there would need to be ground rules about respecting our family structure. He nodded earnestly. Absolutely. Whatever you think is appropriate. As our conversation continued, I glimpsed something I had rarely seen in my father before: humility. The financial consequence had broken through decades of rigid thinking in a way that conversations never could have. The following weekend, we met at a neutral location, a park with a playground where the children could play within sight while the adults talked. My mother arrived with my father, her eyes red-rimmed, but her expression determined. I am so sorry, Javier, she said immediately. We were wrong. Not just about Thanksgiving, but about how we have been treating you since the divorce. The children are clearly happy and well-adjusted. You and Amanda are doing a wonderful job co-parenting. Her words were like a balm to wounds I had not fully acknowledged. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. We watched Jack and Sophia play on the swings as we began the difficult conversation about boundaries and expectations. For the first time, I felt like we were talking as adults rather than as parent and child locked in old patterns. We have started seeing a counselor, my mother admitted, someone who specializes in family relationships We realized we have some old-fashioned ideas that were hurting our relationship with you and the grandchildren. This voluntary step toward self-improvement impressed me more than any apology could have. That is great. I am proud of you both for doing that. We know we cannot ask you to resume the mortgage payments, my father added. That was never a sustainable solution. We should have taken responsibility for our financial mistakes instead of putting that burden on you. I appreciate your understanding, I replied. I have set up college funds for Jack and Sophia with that money. It seemed like the right investment in our future. My mother smiled genuinely for the first time. That is exactly what that money should be used for. Over the next few months, our relationship slowly began to heal. The upcoming Christmas gathering was planned with careful consideration of everyone's comfort. My parents moved into their new condo, which was actually more suitable for their retirement years. Most importantly, they began treating Jack and Sophia with unconditional love, making an effort to understand our modern family arrangement rather than criticize it. Thomas and I also found a new understanding, the competitive dynamic of our childhood giving way to mutual respect as adults. His children and mine played together without the undercurrent of comparison that had previously tainted family gatherings. The Christmas celebration was held at my parents' new condo. When I arrived with Jack and Sophia, the atmosphere could not have been more different from Thanksgiving. My mother greeted all three of us with warm hugs, and my father had prepared special stockings for each child. During dinner, my father raised his glass in a toast to family in all its forms and to second chances. As I looked around the table at the faces of those I loved, despite our differences, I realized that sometimes the most valuable gift we can give each other is the courage to establish boundaries and the grace to respect them. My decision to stop the mortgage payments had initially felt like cutting a cord, but in reality, it had been the first step toward building a healthier connection. Money had complicated our family dynamic, creating artificial power structures instead of authentic bonds. By removing that element, we had cleared the way for something more valuable, mutual respect. While our relationship was still a work in progress, I had learned something valuable about love and support. True family connection cannot be bought or sold, only earned through genuine acceptance and respect. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for those we care about is to stop enabling unhealthy patterns and start building something better in their place. Looking back on that Thanksgiving now, I can see it was a necessary breaking point, even if it was painful in the moment. Sometimes relationships need to fracture before they can heal properly. My parents and I have built something stronger and more authentic than what we had before, based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation or expectation. I still help them occasionally with technical support or home repairs, but our relationship is no longer defined by money or conformity to their vision of what my life should be. They have become wonderful grandparents to Jack and Sophia, accepting our blended modern family arrangement without judgment. Last month, they even invited Amanda and her new partner to a family barbecue, a gesture that would have been unimaginable a year ago. The college funds I established for my children are growing steadily, a tangible investment in their future and a reminder that sometimes we need to redirect our resources to where they truly belong. My parents found that downsizing brought unexpected freedom, releasing them from the burden of maintaining a house that had become too large for their needs. The most valuable lesson I learned through this experience is that genuine relationships cannot be purchased or maintained through financial transactions. True family bonds require honesty, respect for boundaries, and the courage to stand firm when those boundaries are tested. By finally standing up for myself and my children, I made space for all of us to grow into better versions of ourselves. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who could not respect your life choices? How did you navigate that situation while protecting your own well-being? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences about family dynamics personal growth, and finding your way through challenging relationships. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to break unhealthy patterns even when it hurts.